Hello and welcome back to Suspended Fanimation. I'm your host, Dennis Betholkis, and this is His Dark Materials, Season 1, Episode 2, The Idea of North. So, welcome everybody. You can probably hear the skateboard punks outside. So, I apologize for that. They just decided to start just as I was getting ready to start, which is awesome. So, let me get rid of some business here first. If you like what you see here, hit the like button, the subscribe button, like, share, and subscribe. Also, if you want to know when I'm be on live again next, you can hit the bell down below. If you've already hit the bell, don't hit it again. It will unclick it. You can go in the bell settings, get as many or as little notifications as you want. You can also see that whole schedule that I do every week up on suspendedfanimation.com. I also mirror that on my Facebook page. And speaking of Facebook, I also have a Facebook group page where you guys can post stuff and talk amongst yourselves. I have a Twitter, I have an Instagram. I also have a Patreon page, but I don't have any tiers set up as of yet. But I will at the end of this year, beginning of next year. There we go. So, before we start here, of course, spoiler alert, I am going to spoil the shit out of the episode. If you have not seen the episode, go and watch it. Come on back. This will be a video you can comment down below in the comment section. Thank you, Viking Bitch, for the brand new paddle. Yes. And as ever present is the old spoiler alert right here. Yes, as you can see right there. That was the very first spoiler alert sign a long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Yeah. Yeah, that paddle can be used for your ass move, Finobi. You should ask Viking Bitch about that one. So we end up seeing Lyra get to her new home with Mrs. Coulter out in London, and she gets a tour of the new place where everything is. She sees her room, and we see Roger getting acquainted with his new place too, as he gets dumped in with the other lost children and reunites with Billy. Mrs. Coulter, is telling Lyra that she has people out looking for Roger, and asks her about if she's scared of heights. She's actually looking over the balcony railing there, and of course, Lyra has no fear of heights. And Mrs. Coulter says, her whole thing was she was always tempted to jump. Is what it was. She goes, but we have things to do before we go lunching over at the Arctic Institute. And of course, Lyra gets really, jazzed up about this. So as they're at the Arctic Institute, Lyra is running around taking a look at all the stuff that's there, just really like kid in a candy store, of course. And she, so much so that Mrs. Coulter has to rein her in and says, hey, look around you. How many women do you see? And of course, it's just them. And she goes, yeah. But if you listen to me, I'm going to groom you so that they can never hurt you. And you'll also have all the knowledge that they won't, is what she says. So we see the Western King and the Egyptians mapping out how they're going to all the gobbler locations that they can think of. And they're going to plan to make a raid to see if they can find the children at this point. Pan, in the meantime, so Mrs. Coulter is giving Lyra a bath and talking about fitting in and all this stuff, and Pan actually tells Lyra they shouldn't have to change just to fit in there. And as she's leaving, we see Mrs. Coulter kind of spacing out over the tub, and her monkey looks at her kind of weirdly, and then she kind of snaps out of it and pulls the plug in the drain and takes off. Pan wakes up Lyra in the middle of the night because they hear a noise, and Lyra's that's just the pipes. Go back to sleep. So of course they go back to sleep. So the Egyptians are raid the gobbler location, gobbler location, and they find it empty. But of course they do find the children used to be there. So there's all these beds and tables and whatnot, and they find Billy's sweater. Dun dun dun. So obviously it's to tell us that Billy had been there at one point in time. So excuse me. We get a little bit of Roger's backstory as he's talking to Billy, and he doesn't have any family. He was brought up by his aunt, who finally got tired of him and got him a job at Jordan College. She got him a very good job at Jordan College and dumped him off on the college, obviously. And Mrs. Coulter ends up dressing Lyra, in blue, because blue is her power color, I guess. Blue is her color. And yeah, there's a lot of little things that are going on. They're world building here. So this is the second episode. I actually like that they're taking a little bit of time to world build a bit, as well as getting some of the story in as well, which is good. I have never read the books. I'm coming into this fresh. I don't know anything about this world whatsoever. I don't remember the Golden Compass movie that was long ago because I fell asleep during it. Um, so obviously I didn't see the whole thing. The master ends up meeting with some guy named Carlos who wants to look at Grumman's head and says, "Hey, I heard that he passed between worlds before," and the master's like, "That's heresy." And he says, "And by the way, his skull has already been committed to the crypt, and where it belongs, and it's not being removed from there." Is what's going on. So Lyra, in the meantime, presses Miss Coulter about Roger again. And she's like, I've got people looking for him. Leave me the fuck alone," kind of thing. And she wants Lyra, of course, to focus on her readings. She's reading about ions and electrons and things like that at this point. And Lyra recites back what she's read and then says that it's just like dust. And Miss Coulter says, "Well, what do you mean? What about dust? Where'd you hear about this? Who told you this?" And she goes, "Oh, it was a visiting scholar from the Netherlands or something like that." That's where I think I heard it from. In the meantime, Billy's mom Maggie is pissed at the Egyptians for leaving Oxford. 'Cause she thinks Billy is still there, and they're like, "Nope, he's here. Here's his sweater. Now you can sniff it and cry over it." Is what they pretty much. It was kind of a dick move, quite honestly, the way they did it. They just kind of gave her the sweater, and goes, "Nope, he's here. We were right all this time." And so she's crying. In the meantime, Benjamin, Billy's brother, ends up making a pact with Tommy secretly so that they can go and plan to find the gobblers at this point. So a cardinal comes to Father McPhail about the Egyptians looking for the children, and he says, "You know what? Shit's starting to come to light now. We probably want to ramp this down a bit. You might want to talk to the board and have them, of course, um, take a little, put things more on the down low. Otherwise, we're going to lose everything at this point." So Pan ends up waking Lyra again for the noise, and Lyra's like, "Oh, wait a minute, that is not the pipes. That's something moving around inside the vents." So they go out and they start looking around. And by the way, Mrs. Coulter told her that Lyra can go any place else in the house except for her room and her study. She wants some privacy, of course. And so she starts looking around, and of course, she opens up the door to Mrs. Coulter's study. And who's in there but Mrs. Coulter's monkey? And the monkey looks right at her and she freezes. And Mrs. Coulter's all the way down the hall and calls out for Lyra. And Lyra goes, "Wait a minute, what's going on? How are you all the way down there and your daemon's up here? Aren't you feeling any pain? Because when you're supposed to be separated from your demon from spaces, you end up feeling pain." And she goes, "What are you talking about? My monkey's right here next to me," because the monkey's literally right there. She goes, "You must be seeing things. Why don't you go back to your bed and go back to sleep, huh?" And so, of course, she puts Lyra back to bed, and then Mrs. Coulter slaps her monkey. Yeah. So, in the meantime, yeah, so what? I never wear pants for this thing. He goes down to the crypt to find Grumman's skull, and he touches it and says, Azrael was lying, and this isn't him. And he goes, "We need to cross over," is what he says. So we see him walk up some stairs with a lot of greenery that's going on, and there looks like a string hanging in midair. And he walks into the string, and it looks like a portal. So he disappears from that world and winds up in Oxford in another world. It looks kind of like our world, actually, at this point. And he ends up going to a car that has a couple of notices that it's been sitting there way too long. He strips them off and plugs in a cell phone and then texts someone. So yeah, Carlos is up to no good at this point. Mrs. Coulter, on the other hand, tells Lyra she's got to stay in her room because she has guests coming over. and it's Father McPhail, and he's at the magisterium, which of course Pan tells Lyra, because that looks like it's somebody from the magisterium. And Lyra, of course, does not stay in her room. She sneaks out to go and spy on the conversation that's happening in Mrs. Coulter's study. But of course, Father McPhail's daemon, which is a wasp, I guess, at this point, finds her, and Lyra is outed, and she's thrown back in her room, of course. And yeah, it's kind of a big deal at this point. So, Mrs. Coulter says that they're this close to almost understanding dust and how it affects and how they interact with it, and she said she should be going faster, not slower. That's what the magisterium should be more interested in, and not just going slower. So the father leaves, and Mrs. Coulter, talks to Lyra and notices that she's wearing a purse because Lyra has now put the alleviometer in the purse. She decides she's going to carry it with her everywhere, and she goes, "That's kind of an odd, item to be doing, carrying around a purse in your own home." And she's very protective of the purse. And Lyra just ends up saying, you're very you were upset with me. You actually lost control of yourself." And Mrs. Coulter's like, "I didn't lose control of myself." She goes, "You did. And as a matter of fact, you're still angry at me right now." And Mrs. Coulter turns to leave for a second, then turns back around again, and her daemon ends up attacking Lyra's daemon. And we see Lyra's Pan, ends up morphing into different animals, and of course can't compare, can't beat the monkey. And she's getting hurt, and she even, as it's hurting Pan, it's actually hurting Lyra as well. So we see that they're linked at this point. And Coulter's tells her, she's going to act as a perfect child. She's going to smile. She's not going to talk back. All this kind of stuff. Basically, she sets out the rules fairly evenly right there, and says, and then when Lyra says, her uncle will come and is going to be upset at her, that's when Mrs. Coulter lets slip that that's not her uncle, that's her father. Dun dun dun. So Azrael is Lyra's father at this point. And she goes, "Well, who's my mother?" And the other thing Coulter says is, "Who knows? It could be anybody, really. He always had a woman on his arm at some point in time. So it could be anybody at this point." She goes, "That's not not the important thing at this moment." And Lyra goes running off to her room, and Coulter comes in to say, we can actually rise above who we are and all this kind of stuff. And she says, like, just leave me the fuck alone. I want to be alone for a little while. So Coulter leaves, and Lyra pulls out the alleviometer and starts asking it questions. And of course, nothing's working. So she throws it down to the ground and closes her eyes, and she starts to cry a little bit. And the alleviometer moves just a little bit, like tick, it moves. Yeah. So Carlos meets Thomas at a coffee shop, and notices, your coffee's better than ours, is what Carlos says. And he says, "I'm looking for Azrael." And he shows him a picture on the cell phone and says, "Can you find this guy for me? I think he's crossed over to your world." And Thomas goes, "I'll ask around, see what's going on. Mrs. Coulter, in the meantime, tells Lyra that Roger is probably still at Jordan College. And Lyra calls her a liar, of course, at this point. And Pan tells Lyra that she doesn't think that Coulter's been looking for Roger at all this time. You think? Yeah. And what was the magisterium doing there? Is what Pan also asks. Pan's actually asking all the correct questions, whereas Lyra just seems to kind of be rolling with shit at this point. So Coulter leaves and locks the elevator and locks, uh, Lyra and Pan inside. So what are they going to do? They're going to go to the study. The study's locked too, but the vents aren't. So they decide they're going to go through the vents to go into the study. And they find out this is where Mrs. Coulter's daemon has been spying on them. And they're like, "Oh, you know what? Turnabout's fair play. We're going to go and spy on her." So they break into the study, of course, and start looking around. In the meantime, we see Mrs. Coulter go and visit the children, and she tells the children that they're going to go on an adventure and on a boat ride, and they need to write letters to their parents. And so she sits there and writes out all these letters to all their parents. And Roger, of course, writes a letter to Lyra because he doesn't have any parents, of course. And we see Lyra ends up ransacking Coulter's study at this point and finds plans for something called the station. And that's when Mrs. Coulter tells the kids that they're going to go someplace called the station. And the station is located someplace in the north. Remember where the witches are? So, yeah. So, Mrs. Coulter most likely is a witch at this point. So we see Coulter. She was walking down a hallway and this dingy hallway away from the children, and she burns their letters. She really just doesn't give a shit. So Lyra also sees plans for cells with humans and their daemons separated, but sitting next to each other in the plans and the blueprints there. So as she's still in the study, the elevator dings, being called, and Pan's like, "Okay, we need to get the fuck out of here now. Coulter's on her way back up." So Lyra puts everything back together again, scrambles back up into the vent, and gets out just in time to get to her room to pretend that she's reading about the North. And Coulter seems pleased with this, and even Coulter's Damon seems a little bit pleased and pets Pan, which is kind of creepy. Yeah, it was a little bit on the weird side. So that night, Lyra blocks up all the vents and whispers to Pan. She goes, "What is Coulter? How could she get so far from her daemon? What is the machinery that they saw in the plans? And what the fuck is going on, essentially?" So Carlos returns through the portal to Lyra's world there. And we see that Lyra is serving drinks at a party when some woman takes her aside and tells her, um, and that's the other thing too. Lyra actually found all these notes for the Absolarium board and doesn't know what the hell that is. And this woman who takes Lyra aside says, Mrs. Coulter is the Absolarium board. And she's the one that is the head of the gobblers that's taking all the children. And you need to get the fuck out of here now, kind of thing. And it's spotted that the woman is actually a journalist and talking to Lyra. uh, and Mrs. Coulter grabs her first, starts walking her down the hall, and Carlos says, "You know what? I'll take care of her. Why don't you go and take care of the girl?" So, Mrs. Coulter goes to look for Lyra and doesn't see her and is looking all over the place. And in the meantime, the elevator has been left unlocked, and Lyra has seen this. She was going to leave, but needed to get the alleviameter, goes running back, ends up jumping out the window, walking along the outside railing, and then making her way down the fire escape and the stairs in the back. And uh, Coulter and the Damon open up the window and see her running down the stairs. That she's running away at this point, and they're like, "Shit, you know what? She's gone." In the meantime, Carlos takes the journalist into a car, and the journalist Damon is a butterfly, and he traps it, and it hurts her for a second. He goes, "Such a beautiful thing," and he crushes it, even though she pleaded for him not to kill her. And of course, he kills her by killing her daemon. Yeah, pretty dick move at this point. So we see the kids are taken down a hallway, and yeah, they're going off to the north at this point. And Lyra, in the meantime, is getting ready to spend the night out in the streets when they hear some weird noise, some sound, and we see the fox that all these kids had seen before they got abducted. And Pan goes running towards the fox, and Lyra's like, "Get back over here! What the fuck are you doing?" And sure enough, Lyra ends up getting kidnapped, and that's where we leave off on the episode. So, like I said, we got some more story put in there. It was actually pretty good. Uh, things are moving along, and we don't know what the alleviameter is for at the moment, but that's good as well. I mean, we're only the second episode in. They don't need to explain everything at the moment. Um, we see that people can move between worlds, that they're, that as long as you find the right spot, I guess. And yeah, so everything's moving along fairly nicely at this point. Um, I've got no complaints about this. Like I said, I know nothing about the books at all. I'm in this blind at this point. So I'm just along for the ride and what's going on in this show at the moment. And so far, it's okay. I mean, I'm not invested in any of the characters as of yet, but hey, you know what? That's soon to come. Like I said, only second episode in. But Azrael is kind of a dick. I can say that much so far. A lot of these people kind of are dicks. They kind of just pawn off their children on other people. So yeah, Lyra really does have a problem listening to authority as well. I agree with you. Yeah. Good movie for nobody's finally gone. It's about time. Yeah. Hey, Marcus Khan. Um, yeah, so it's interesting. The CGI is a little bit weird, but of course, you're doing a whole series at this point, and yeah, the CGI is going to be dodgy at some points in time, especially when you're dealing with a whole bunch of animals, CGI animals and stuff like that. I do like the way they're doing Pan as the ferret. Yeah. Oh God, but we're stuck with Ejar. I don't know if I want to do that. That's yeah, man. Okay. Um, but yeah, I mean the monkey CGI was a little bit weird, but it works with the creepiness of the monkey anyway, so I'm okay with it. I'll leave it at that. And I guess as you're an adult, once your daemon finds its final form, that's what it's stuck with, and it can't change. Unlike the children's daemons, which can actually change as they're fighting other daemons. So creepy stellar scene showing her true color. Oh, you're talking about Coulter? Yeah. Well, Coulter is like all over the map, man. Uh, she looks like she's bipolar, quite honestly. The way she just kind of goes through her different emotions. Yeah, she's just hot and cold, hot and cold. Pretty freaky as it is. And what is it with Father McPhail not wanting any tea? We only want water instead. Get some tea in you, you pale, creepy asshole. Ruth Wilson got look. Yeah, she does. Yes, she does. That's why she is on the thumbnail. It had nothing to do with the cleavage showing at all. So, not at all. So, hey, I know what nerds are looking for, quite honestly. That's why I put these things up there. Ah, yeah, I'm probably going to get some hate comments on that one. So, I'm pretty sure someone's already given me a thumbs down. There's always one person on pretty much every single video that I've done who gives me a thumbs down. So, for whatever reason. Yeah. Uh-huh, is what HR says. Yeah. Great in Luther. What, Joe? It's Pepper. Yeah. It's a Monday? Yes, it is Monday. I was off today because it's Veterans Day. So, yeah, my work celebrates Veterans Day. Thank you to all you veterans out there. That's not alcohol, it's just water, so far as you know. But yeah. Yes, and tomorrow is going to be the premiere of The Mandalorian. Yes, The Mandalorian. And of course, Wednesday and Thursday I'm off. Friday is Titans. Saturday is Saturday morning blast off. We come back around the horn again to Sunday with both Mr. Robot and Watchmen, the fanfic Watchmen. So many people are pissed. I think that I called it fanfic. That I think right now I've got 11 downvotes on that one so far. My last video, it's pretty funny. And of course, we come back around the horn again to his Dark Materials on Monday. Yeah. R. Wilson was in Idris Elba's BBC series Luther. Ah, okay. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Ah, The Mandalorian was 6 episodes. Yeah. Is it only 6 episodes that they're showing, each hour? I thought they were just gonna release them once a week is what was gonna happen. They're not releasing all 6 episodes at once, they're releasing them once a week. Yeah. Yeah, I could have called Watchmen a lot worse things. I actually posted something on Facebook today that was hilarious. They actually called out, Dave Gibbons' own words from 1986. Yeah, it was 86, when he and Alan Moore were at a convention, and they were being very optimistic about, the rights and all that kinda stuff from DC and how DC Comics was gonna handle things, and you look at it 30 years later, and you're just like, "Damn, they got screwed over." They got screwed over pretty bad, quite honestly, on that deal. And, I mean, Gibbons pretty much had to do a 180, as to what he said in that panel in order to work with this thing that he's on right now. Yeah. I don't know how many episodes of The Mandalorian there are. Yeah. I've been watching some interesting fan theory about Watchmen on my off day todays. Oh, okay. I kinda stopped and now I'm not watching The Watchmen. Okay. Got it, EJ. Oh, on YouTube? On the YouTubes, you've been watching theories? Yeah, I got tired of, a lot of theories that are going out there. Okay, so I don't watch, any other YouTube channels. I know I'm bad, that I state this, but I don't wanna be influenced by things, and I also don't wanna have misinformation fill my head, to tell you the truth, and there's a lot of fucking misinformation out there. It's okay to speculate on things as long as you preface it as saying, "This is speculation on my part." I say that all the time. Um, but when you start trying to pass something off as fact and, trying to push it as fact and run for it with for years trying to say that it's fact and it's really not, um, that's when I'm gonna, like, just drown you out at that point. 8, episodes of Mandalorian, huh? Yeah. Yes, I did mention Westworld in my video last night, for Watchmen. That's right, Joe Greer. There's a few things that, Watchmen has been, borrowing from, shall we say, or emulating, and it's not a far stretch. I mean, that they're borrowing from other HBO series that are doing well. Just not doing it as well as those other HBO series. And that's not saying that I hate it or that I like it. It's kind of a middle of the road for me at the moment. I listen to podcasts and watch videos to understand the first season of Westworld. Yeah, see, I don't like that, quite honestly, when you have to do homework in order to understand a show just because they're not giving you enough information, but they're giving you information outside of the show, like the Peteypedia page, and which sounds like a pedophilia page, but whatever. Anyway, this is not supposed to be a Watchman. We're talking about his Dark Materials here. Um, so this episode was good. Like I said, it is setting up the world. We're getting along in this world, and the story's moving along fairly quickly from what it looks like, and I'm all right with that. So, and they're explaining things along the way, which is nice. And they're not kind of like stopping the story in order to explain things. They're kind of weaving it into the story, which is good. Yeah. That's what Saturdays are for, Joe. Saturdays are for it's a free for all on Saturdays, quite honestly. So I'll talk about that other stuff on Saturdays. But then as some shows require that I have to tell you that I have you tell me what I just watched, like Legion. Sometimes, yes, the explanations are needed for things, but Killjoy. Breadcrumbs, of course, man. I gotta get you to watch my other shit that's going on. You know, my Saturday morning blast offs are only in the double digits, man. I need to move up to the triple digits or quadruple digits. Kind of like Mr. Robot is right now. Mr. Robot, my God, that's just taking off like nuts right now. And for a good reason. It's just a damn good show, you know. Unlike Killjoy, which was not the greatest of shows. Killjoys? Killjoys. That's what it was. Sorry, Joker. I'm kidding. You know, I just had to take a little jab at that one. So, if you like what you see here, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If you're still on the fence about joining up, you're going to see a video pop up here at the very end of this video. And basically, what it is that YouTube takes the algorithms of all the stuff you've been watching and then plucks a video based on all those algorithms that matches as close as possible to one of those videos in my vast video library and pops it up there for you. Up here is going to be Mr. Robot. That's what I'm going to put there. Yeah. Um, I still say it's partly because so few channels cover Mr. Robot. Yeah, I agree with you, Penn. A lot of people do not cover Mr. Robot because they're not into it. And I can see that. I mean, if you haven't been into the show, if you are just trying to get into it now, it's fairly fucking difficult to get into this show. If you've been following it since the beginning, then you're right on it right there. And I don't think there's a lot of YouTube channels that have been following it since the beginning or that have people that have been following it since the beginning. So they can't just jump into it and go, hey, even I make mistakes on things. Like I thought that Leon was in the first season, but it's not that. It's just I kept seeing his name in the damn credits because Joey Badass does the music. So yeah, that's the reason why I got confused on that. It happens. Yeah. I'm glad they won Emmys off the first season with Mr. Right. Yeah, they should be winning it, quite honestly, with Rami Malek's performance, quite honestly. Marcus Khan says, I think Mr. Robot is so great. I try to let other people know at work, but when they got back to me, they said it was too weird. Tell me a lot about my yeah. I don't recommend it to people just for the simple fact, unless I know the person is into really weird shit, then I'll recommend it to them. But quite honestly, nobody at work I'll recommend it to. I recommended Legion to a few people at work just because I know they've been into comics, but I preface it by telling them it's some really twisted shit. And if you're not into it, you're not going to be into it. So don't be put off if you don't like it. You can tell me that you don't like it. That's fine. I mean, I tell people you either love it or you hate it. It's one or the other. And you have to be, I have to say, you have to be really versed in comics in order to be primed in order to like Legion, I think, or at least watch a lot of Fellini films or something like that. Yeah, I've covered Legion, Preacher, Happy. Uh, um, yeah. Uh, you know, also, now I'm just blanking on it. I can see the kids in the school for assassins now. Oh my god, now I'm just blank. I'm getting old now at this point. Yeah. Deadly Class, thank you. Yes, Deadly Class. Um, all kinds of weird shit. I like the weird shows. I really do. I do like, and like I said before, the reason why I like the weird shows is it's something I haven't seen before. I've seen a lot of stuff, I've read a lot of stuff, and a lot of stuff repeats itself. And sure, you have common themes running through some of these shows sometimes, but I want something a little bit different. And all those shows that I've covered have something a little bit different to them. I'm really glad I dropped the CW superheroes, feelings in hallways, because quite honestly, I couldn't do it every week. I couldn't watch all as it is. I think I'm behind on my viewing of the CW shows at the moment. Yeah. And yeah, I don't think I work in linear fashion, quite honestly, EJAR. I'm fairly sure I'm nonlinear. As anybody who's ever had a conversation with me, has probably agrees with, there's people out there who are nodding their heads right now going, "Uh-huh," because I will go off on fucking tangents and come back around and swing back around, and I'll come back to whatever it was we were talking about, and it'll make perfect sense to me, but then they'll all be connected at some point in time in that loop. It's just the way shit goes through my head. So yeah, the only thing I might boycott is WWE wrestling when certain storylines are going only one way to hurt Vince. Oh god. I haven't watched that since I was 10, so I couldn't tell you, Joe. Yeah. Was it 10? Yeah, I think it was 10. That was the last time I watched some WWE. So back when it was called WWF. Yeah. Thank you, Pen. The tangents. The non sequiturs. Yes, it's popular again with Wednesday Night Wrestling Wars. Oh, wow. I didn't know that was still on. I thought it moved over to, something on the interwebs or something like that, something on the dark web or something like that. They have wrestling going on, all that stuff. I kid. There's another downvote for somebody. Anyway, I'm gonna let you guys go for the night. Thank you everybody who joined me tonight in the chat. Thank you if you made it this far in the video. And I'm going to see you again tomorrow for The Mandalorian, for the season premiere of The Mandalorian, because I'm pretty sure we're going to start getting Boba Fett, is what this is. Do you remember watching roller derby as a kid? Yes, roller derby was on TV when I was a kid, back when you had to actually get up and change the channel. And I believe it was on one of the local channels. We actually used to have roller derby as a kid. Yes. Supposedly nearby me here, there's some roller derby going on right now. Not channel 56 where I was. It was channel 44, if I remember correctly, that had it on. Or no, it's channel 26. Channel 26. Yes, there's only like 3 or 4 channels. Oh no, 5 channels. There's 5 channels. Because we had the major networks, the 3 major networks, not the 4, it was 3 at the time. And then we had 2 local, one that was basically a Chinese language channel. And then we had uh, channel 44 and channel 2. I take that back. So 6 channels. That's right. At the Cow Palace, yes, some of them were at the Cow Palace. I think some of them were other places as well. I actually know back in the 90s, so we used to have a whole bunch of in San Francisco. There used to be these places that were underground clubs and whatnot, and illegal underground clubs, I guess you could say, because none of them were licensed or anything like that. So they would do roller derby events. My favorite was fuck, what was it? It was it was a luchador, basically wrestling thing, but they hand out stacks of tortillas to everyone when you go in. And so when you like something, everyone would cheer and throw tortillas down into the ring. And it was guys on luchador masks, and they had vertically challenged people as well that would go out and do wrestling in luchador masks. It was a fucking hoot. Yeah. It was called something I can't remember now. It actually had a title to it that would come out, and it got really big at one point, and I can't remember it for the life of me. Yes, we would throw tortillas into the ring. You got a stack of them too. You got a stack of tortillas when you walked in. That was part of your ticket price, and you throw tortillas into the ring. It, like I said, it was a weird thing. Incredibly strange wrestling. That's what it was. Incredibly strange wrestling. If you ever get a chance, look up incredibly strange wrestling. It is out there someplace. It's one of those fucking weird things that I still think was a fever dream in my life at some point in time. I did a lot of weird shit. I got to go and see a lot of weird shit when I was growing up. and in my 20s as well, and in my 30s. So occasionally I do some, I get involved in weird shit again. So uh yeah, the Incredibly Strange Wrestling had an LA component too, if I remember correctly. So they were both in San Francisco and they traveled to LA. So I think they did that circuit. And um God, there were so many weird things. This is back when San Francisco actually was filled with a whole bunch of artists, and you had a lot of weird stuff that would happen. I remember going to a barbecue in South San Francisco, to a guy's house. I only knew one person that I went with, and the guy's house who was throwing the barbecue was actually building the Burning Man for that year out on his front lawn. He had the pieces of the wooden man out on his front lawn for that year. And that was sometime in the 90s, I think, somewhere like that. Like I said, I interacted every now and then with some very weird people, and I saw some very interesting shit as I went through a lot of things. I have never been to Coachella. I've never had an urge to go and pay to see a concert out in the desert, and you know, yeah. Yes, there you go. Incredibly Strange Wrestling's Geeks, Freaks, and Tortillas. Yeah, it took me a while to remember it. I mean, there's guys in gorilla masks that would wrestle, all kinds of weird shit for that. That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fucking fun. I'm just happy YouTube now broadcasts the first week. Oh, of Coachella? Yeah. I'm too old to do that shit. I don't want to go out in the desert and hang out with a bunch of sweaty people that are stoned out of their minds. Back when there were bars with chicken wire around the stage, I remember playing those. So when I lived up in Davis, um, this will be one weird story, and this is gonna be it, and then I'm gonna let you guys go. There was a strip club that was out in, I want to say, Citrus Heights or something like that. It was way the fuck out there. All I remember was we went there and they had chicken wire around the stage that the dancers were on. I shit you not, in a strip club. And that was the first time I was kind of afraid of where the fuck I was. And because it was just out in the middle of nowhere. And I felt that maybe I kind of felt like I wasn't the right skin color going in there. Let's just say that, you know? Yeah. That's how scary that place was. Yeah. No, you're not gonna see any pictures of me. At least not that you know of. I might be wearing a mask. You never know. Um, with that said, his Dark Materials, good. Have a fun time watching it if you haven't already seen it. Uh, I will see you tomorrow for The Mandalorian, the opening of The Mandalorian. And until then, I'm gonna let you guys go. So thank you everyone who joined me tonight in the chat. Thank you if you made it this far in the video and the rambly parts at the end here. If you're still on the fence about joining up, hit the subscribe or take a look at the video up here and then hit the subscribe button. Like, share, subscribe. Until tomorrow, don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. Otherwise, you may end up getting chased by a monkey who just got slapped by its owner. And nobody wants that. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night. See you tomorrow.